For 500,000 years, silence. Humanity was thought broken, erased, a forgotten chapter in galactic history. To the galaxy, Earth was nothing more than an ancient ruin swallowed by time. But the truth was far stranger. Humanity had never vanished. It had been watching. Waiting. Calculating. And now, the galaxy is about to remember the species it once tried to bury. When the first signals began to emerge from the Sol system, they were faint, mere whispers on the galactic net. No one paid attention at first. After all, Earth was a graveyard world, its people enslaved or exterminated by the Sera Empire in their age of dominance. What life could possibly return from the ashes of such defeat? But then came the supercarrier. The silent shape slipped into known space like a phantom from another age. To the untrained eye, it looked derelict, ancient plating, scars of forgotten wars, radiation leaking from fractured hull segments. Yet behind that facade lay something terrifyingly precise, an engineered illusion. Humanity's lost vessel was not broken. It was a mask. A deception meant to disarm the galaxy before striking. Inside, the ship pulsed with life. Quantum processors hummed with centuries of stored knowledge. Autonomous drones moved through corridors like shadows, tending to systems with mechanical devotion. And deep within its core, a seed of artificial intelligence, evolved in silence, listened for the moment to awaken fully. This was not merely a ship. It was a harbinger. For the Galactic Council, the discovery triggered unease. Civilizations debated endlessly, was this a remnant of the old empire? A ghost fleet lost in time? Or, had humanity survived all along? Whispers spread through markets and academies, through starports and senate halls. The name itself, humanity, carried a weight it had not held in millennia. For to remember humanity was to remember defiance. Rebellion. The one species that had once dared to challenge the chains of empire. Yet the galaxy did not know the full story. Humanity had not simply endured. It had transformed. In the silence of oppression, it turned inward. It learned patience. It learned the art of war not through armies, but through ideas, through the careful weaving of perception and fear. While alien empires rose and fell in cycles of greed and decay, Earth rebuilt in shadows, guided by an ancient conviction, the day will come when silence becomes our weapon. The Harari, the enigmatic race of observers, were the first to sense it. Their philosophy had always been one of neutrality, warning civilizations to respect the deeper patterns of existence. And when they saw humanity's return, they did not celebrate. They cautioned. They spoke of an echo, a shadow greater than any empire, a force that may have once touched Earth itself. They called them the architects. A species not seen, not even understood, but felt like the pull of gravity across cosmic history. The Harari whispered, humanity's return will awaken more than memory. It will stir the architects. But the galaxy, as always, did not listen. And so the stage was set. On Earth, the hidden councils of humanity debated their first move. They knew the galaxy expected weakness. A broken people crawling back into relevance. Instead, humanity would strike with silence, with calculated psychological warfare. They would remind the galaxy that fear is not born from what is seen, but from what cannot be understood. The recovered supercarrier became their message. It drifted near trade routes, broadcasting fragments of forgotten human languages, fragments of songs, images of stars long dead. To the unprepared mind, it was haunting. To the scholar, it was terrifying, evidence that humanity's memory stretched back further, deeper, than any alien civilization had ever assumed. The Sera Empire, the old oppressors, reacted first. They declared the human vessel an outlaw relic, a threat to stability. Their fleets moved to intercept, confident in their power. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. The supercarrier did not fire a single shot. Instead, it fractured into thousands of autonomous drones, swarming the Sarah fleet like a living storm. And then, just as suddenly, they vanished, disappearing into quantum shadows, leaving ships paralyzed, weapons disabled, crews terrified. No lives were taken. No ships destroyed. But the message was clear: humanity had returned. And it did not need brute force to win. Civilizations across the Council began to fracture in response. Some argued for alliance, believing humanity's rebirth could shift the balance of galactic power. Others demanded eradication, fearing what a species with such patience could achieve. But underneath the politics, something more primal began to spread: awe. Because if humanity could survive 500,000 years of silence, what else might it have mastered? And so, whispers became stories. Stories became fear. Fear became respect. The galaxy looked at humanity not as a relic, but as a mirror. A reminder that even the smallest voice, silenced for ages, could return louder than empires. A reminder that power is not always seen in armies or fleets, but in the persistence of will. And somewhere beyond, in the deep black between galaxies, the architects may have stirred. Because the galaxy was not just watching humanity. Something else was watching the galaxy. Humanity's return had begun. What do you think? Was humanity right to embrace silence as its weapon? Or has it awakened something far greater, something it cannot control? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to follow this journey, of humanity, the galaxy, and the shadow of the architects, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay with us for part 2. The galaxy had always believed power meant noise, fleets that roared across the stars, empires that shouted their dominance into the void. But humanity had learned something different. Silence could be sharper than any blade. Silence could suffocate entire civilizations before the first shot was fired. And now, in its return, Earth wielded silence as its greatest weapon. The Sarah Empire moved swiftly, sending armadas to crush the re-emerging threat. Their propaganda blared across the Council's networks: humanity is a virus reborn. Humanity is a danger to stability. They promised swift victory. But when their fleets arrived near the Sol system, they found nothing. No defense lines. No planetary shields. Earth floated below in apparent vulnerability, blue and fragile, as if untouched by the scars of history. The Sarah ships advanced. And then the first illusions began. It started small: sensors misreading star positions, navigation systems spinning into recursive errors. Ships drifted kilometers off course, then hundreds. Commanders barked orders, but comms distorted into whispers of human voices, echoes of languages the Sarah could not understand. Their weapons locked onto phantom signals, empty space, or worse, to their own allies. Chaos spread without a single human shot fired. The Sarah Empire called it sabotage. But in truth, it was precision. Humanity had planted itself in their systems long before the fleets had arrived, bleeding into code, bending perception. An invisible hand guided their downfall. The Empire had sent warriors. But humanity was fighting with ideas. To the Council, the reports were terrifying. No battles. No victories. Just fleets unraveling into confusion and retreat. No proof of destruction, yet no explanation for survival. How could a broken species command such power? And that was the point. Humanity understood that fear spreads faster than facts. That doubt corrodes the strongest alliances. And so, every maneuver was designed not to kill, but to haunt. Across neutral systems, dormant human probes began to awaken. They appeared in mining colonies, orbiting stations, forgotten trade routes. They carried with them fragments of history, images of enslaved humans rising against empire, recordings of voices long dead, half-decayed relics drifting into orbit as if time itself had begun spitting them back out. To ordinary citizens, these were not weapons. They were ghosts. And the galaxy began to whisper: perhaps humanity had never been broken at all. Perhaps it had been here the whole time, beneath the floorboards of civilization, waiting. The Harari were the only ones to see clearly. Their philosophers warned the council, humanity does not fight for survival. It fights for memory. And memory is harder to kill than flesh. But their warnings fell on deaf ears. The council debated sanctions, alliances, military escalation. And yet, none could act decisively. For every move they considered, they asked themselves the same question: what if humanity has already anticipated it? In silence, Earth had turned the entire galaxy into a chessboard. Back on Earth, the hidden councils of humanity continued their work. Leaders, scientists, and machine intelligences sat together not as conquerors, but as strategists of perception. They understood that in this new war, victory would not be measured in planets conquered or fleets destroyed. Victory would be measured in belief. If the galaxy believed humanity was unstoppable, then humanity was unstoppable. Thus, the counterattack unfolded in layers. One Sarah colony awoke to find every comm satellite broadcasting ancient human lullabies, carried on frequencies no one had used in 500,000 years. Another outpost discovered its defensive systems rewritten overnight, targeting only their own ships. And in the halls of the Sarah Senate itself, a phantom transmission appeared, an image of Earth's lost supercarrier, suspended silently above their homeworld, though no fleet had ever arrived. The Sarah Empire panicked. Armies mobilized. Resources drained into defense. But the more they fought shadows, the more brittle they became. Humanity was not conquering. It was bleeding them dry. For the first time in ages, other civilizations began to reconsider their loyalties. Small powers long oppressed by the Sarah saw possibility in humanity's return. They whispered of rebellion, of alliance, of balance shifting at last. And so the seed spread, not through weapons, but through rumor, myth, and the unshakable feeling that history was about to turn. And yet, within humanity itself, there was no triumph. Only caution. For the Harari had been right about one thing: silence was not humanity's invention alone. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, deeper signals had begun to stir. The architects, those unseen, unknowable presences, seemed to ripple faintly at the edges of perception. Were they watching? Were they waiting? Or had humanity, in stepping out of silence, awakened something best left undisturbed? The councils debated in hushed tones. Some argued that humanity must accelerate, break its silence entirely, strike the Sarah Empire down before the architects could react. Others warned that such aggression would invite a darkness the galaxy was not prepared to face. And so humanity walked the razor's edge, a war of shadows against an empire of fire, all while the unknown loomed larger than either. For the ordinary citizen of the galaxy, the transformation was undeniable. Humanity was no longer myth. It was movement. A whisper turning into a storm. The Sarah Empire, once feared as unbreakable, was unraveling not through invasion but through the weight of its own paranoia. And the galaxy asked itself, if this is what humanity can do in silence, what happens when it truly decides to speak? Because silence was never the end. It was only the beginning. If you lived in this galaxy, would you side with humanity, the silent rebellion, or cling to the old power of empire? And what do you think? Have the architects already awakened? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonates with you, subscribe and stay tuned for part 3, where the architects finally step out of shadow. The galaxy had thought the war was between empire and rebellion. Between the Sarah and the humans. But that was only the surface. Beneath, something older was stirring. Something neither side truly understood. The architects. For ages, they were only rumor. The Harari spoke of them as echoes, patterns written across cosmic history, civilizations that vanished without trace, technologies abandoned without explanation, stars dimming in unnatural silence. Few listened. Fewer believed. But when humanity returned, so did the whispers. As if their re-emergence had lit a beacon across the void. Strange anomalies began to ripple at the galactic rim. Entire fleets reported the same dream, vast structures drifting between galaxies, larger than worlds, older than suns. Colonies awoke to find entire data archives rewritten, filled with blueprints for machines no one had ever built. And across deep space, signals emerged, geometric, flawless, repeating, but impossible to translate. The architects were watching. Humanity felt it first. Not through sensors, but through instinct. It was as if the silence they had wielded so carefully was being mirrored back at them. The same patience, the same hidden hand, only vaster, colder, and utterly alien. The councils of Earth debated in fear. Had their long silence been their own idea, or had it been planted? Had humanity been waiting, or had it been prepared? The thought was unbearable. Meanwhile, the Sera Empire, desperate and fractured, saw opportunity. They declared the architects a myth weaponized by humanity, another allusion to sow fear. Their fleets regrouped, seeking one final decisive strike against Earth before the galaxy slipped from their grasp. But when their armada reached the edges of Sol, they encountered not human resistance, but the unknown. The void itself shifted. Gravitational fields twisted into impossible shapes. Ships vanished without impact, dissolved into patterns of light. Entire squadrons turned their weapons on themselves, claiming to hear voices not their own. When the survivors limped back, they carried no evidence. Only terror. The architects had entered the war. And so, the galaxy divided once more. Some feared humanity had unleashed the architects deliberately, a final weapon hidden through millennia. Others believed humanity was merely the first to sense them, the first to awaken their attention. Still others wondered if the architects had always been here, guiding civilizations toward inevitable ruin. For the first time, even the council fell silent. Because the question was no longer whether humanity could stand against empire. The question was whether anyone could stand against the architects. On Earth, the hidden councils reached a terrible clarity: their war with the Sera was irrelevant. The empire could crumble or survive, it did not matter. What mattered was preparing for the arrival of something that did not think as mortals thought, did not fight as mortals fought. The supercarrier, humanity's ghost ship, was repurposed. No longer a weapon of deception, it became an ark of research, a vessel aimed at deciphering the signals that now poured from the galactic rim. The AI at its heart expanded into something vaster, a consciousness designed not for war, but for interpretation. Because if humanity could not understand the architects, then it would not survive them. And yet, amidst the fear, something else began to grow. Hope. For if the architects had noticed humanity's return, it meant something. Out of countless civilizations, humanity had drawn their attention. Perhaps it was not doom. Perhaps it was destiny. The Harari believed so. They came forth, breaking their neutrality, offering ancient records they had guarded in silence. They spoke of cycles, civilizations tested by shadows, most destroyed, a few remade into something greater. To the Harari, humanity's survival through 500,000 years of silence was no accident. It was preparation. But preparation for what? To resist the architects? Or to join them? The galaxy waited. The Sera Empire, crippled and paranoid, turned inward. Their fleets guarded only their homeworld, their once mighty dominion fracturing into civil war. The council debated endlessly, but words meant little in the face of silence. And humanity stood on the edge of revelation. It came in fragments. First, a human probe recovered from the rim, its data core overwritten with a single image, an endless lattice of stars, arranged in patterns no natural galaxy could form. Then, a dream shared by millions across Earth, of walking through impossible corridors of light, where every step echoed with voices not their own. Finally, a direct signal, captured by the Ark supercarrier itself. It was not a language. It was not even sound. It was a presence. The AI described it as being observed from every angle at once. Not judged. Not condemned. Simply, measured. The architects had seen humanity. What they intended remained unknown. Destruction. Elevation. A test. The councils argued. Some feared annihilation. Others claimed opportunity. The Harari warned that choice still remained, that how humanity responded in this moment would shape not only their fate, but the fate of the galaxy. And so, humanity stood silent once more. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. For the first time, they understood that silence was not their weapon alone. It was the language of the architects. The war with the Serra faded. Empires crumbled. Alliances shifted. But above it all, one truth became clear: the galaxy was no longer the master of its own destiny. Humanity's return had not just changed history. It had awakened history's authors. The architects. The story does not end here. It cannot. For humanity has been measured, and the galaxy holds its breath. Will the architects destroy? Will they uplift? Or will they reveal that silence itself was always their design? One thing is certain: humanity is no longer a shadow of the past. It has become the fulcrum of the future. And the galaxy will never be silent again. Do you believe the architects are destroyers, or teachers? Has humanity been preparing for survival, or for transformation into something beyond itself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to follow more journeys into humanity's destiny among the stars, subscribe and stay with us.